Who are we? I'll tell you what we're not. We're not old, we're not boring, and we're not giving up. So come on into our Widow Circle where trauma meets humor, and we remind you that you can not only survive, but thrive. This is Every Widow Thing. Welcome to Every Widow Thing. My name is Whitney. I am going to go into my story of how Hunter died. I want to start with the day before. It was September 30th. We had just moved to Austin in July. My cousin and her family lived here. My mom had moved in with us. They were coming from Denver, and she was going to live with us for a year just to get acclimated to Austin and figure out where she wanted to go. So we move here in July. My mom moves in with us, and September 30th, my cousin and her husband and Hunter and I went to the beer festival. And the reason why I wanted to share that is because most of the time, Hunter and I were both running in different directions. He was dealing with the work stuff. I was dealing with the kid stuff. And so we would have a moment in the morning by the coffee machine, a hug and a kiss and say, have a great day or whatever. And then we would split and do our stuff and then come back together at night for a quick kiss. My husband had sleep apnea. Anybody who has ever been around someone with sleep apnea, you know that sleeping with them is excruciating because of the snoring. And so he did not sleep in the bed with me. So
he was not a big guy either, was
No.
he?
So thank you, Lacey. He was very fit. He worked out a lot. It was mild sleep apnea. The Saturday of the 30th, we are going to the beer festival with my cousin and her husband. And it was a treat because we didn't do a lot like that. We had only been on one date night since we moved to Austin because there was just a lot going on. So we spent the whole day together. And what's crazy is that whole day we were holding hands, we were kissing, we were saying, I love you. To the point where like my cousin was like, what is up with you guys? This is getting weird because we were sitting down eating lunch and we were holding hands while we were eating lunch. We never did that. We really loved each other that day. And it's such a blessing because that was his last real day on this earth. We go home. My cousin and her husband are with us and they're laughing because we always had a Sunday family day. Because now we were around family. We'd never lived around family before. We were having a Sunday family day. It was October 1st. So we'd bought all these pumpkins. We were going to carve pumpkins. And Hunter was joking and saying, I'm going to find a way to get out of it. Well, he did. Yeah. He was like, I don't think I'm going to make it. And we were all laughing. Ha, ha, ha.
Wow.
At about 7 a.m. on Sunday, I hear this noise. And I can't really explain it. It was loud and powerful. And I thought that Hunter was having a bad dream, which he would have sometimes. My mom, who's far away on the other side of the house, she hears it in her room. She thinks that someone's in the house and Hunter's fighting them. She thinks it's like I don't know, a noise that someone would make during a fight.
Like a grunt or a cough or?
No, it's very hard to explain. It was like a wail. It was like a loud, powerful wail or something. I can't even, I'd never heard anything like it. I've never heard anything since. I don't really understand what it was. But it got me, I jumped out of bed and I ran down the stairs and I'm thinking he's having a bad dream. So I'm running down the stairs. My mom's running from the other side of the house. And we both get in there. And Hunter's laying on the couch. And so my mom's standing up and I'm sitting on the couch. And I'm just like patting him and saying, you're okay. You know, you just had a bad dream. You're all right. And my mom realizes that, oh, this is a little awkward that I'm still standing here. So she goes back to her bedroom. And I'm sitting there and, you know, we've talked about this. Time kind of stands still. You're not really sure if it was 5 minutes or 5 seconds, but my brain was kind of starting to process stuff. So I'm sitting there. And because my husband had sleep apnea, he didn't get good sleep. He did not wear a CPAP machine. He had one, but he did not wear it because it was uncomfortable, which is a reason that a lot of people use for not wearing it. So he didn't get good sleep. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, he's still in such a deep sleep.
I hate to wake him up, but everyone's about to get up. And so my brain is thinking like that. And I'm like, okay.
You're in practical mode.
Yeah, I'm in practical mode. I'm like, wow, he's in a really deep sleep. And then it starts to dawn on me that he's literally hasn't responded at all to anything. I'm like, wait, is he breathing? And I lean down and I can't tell because now your adrenaline starts going. And I'm like, is that my heart I'm hearing? Is it his heart I'm hearing? I don't know what's going on. And it starts to dawn on me that this is a problem. And I start yelling for my mom. And my mom comes running in and I have the phone. We still had a landline. And I have the phone and I'm trying to dial 911 and my fingers won't do the full 911, which is crazy because 911 is easy. But I literally was doing like 991 and then I'd have to hang up. And then it took me like 3 tries to get 911. In the meantime, my mom is trying to start CPR. So, and we're doing the CPR stuff. And I remember telling her to be quiet because the sound is going upstairs to my kids. And I didn't want them to hear all of what was happening down here. And I'm straddling Hunter, trying to give him CPR, and the fire department comes in. They come in, they take over. My mom and I step to the side. A police officer shows up. And so we're in the corner, we're praying. My mom's like, do you want to pray? I said, yes. They get his heart started again, and then they lose it. So at this point, they've been there for like 20 minutes. And I said, when do you call it? When do you call it? And they said, it's 30 minutes, but it starts over every time the heart starts back up. So they got his heart started, then they lost it, but the 30 minutes starts over. I can't really remember. I don't know exactly how long they were there, but they got his heart started again. And I remember saying to the EMT guy, oh my gosh, thank you. You've saved his life. Thank you so much. And he said, he's very, very sick. I just need you to know he's very, very sick. They take him in an ambulance, and another little, not an ambulance, but an emergency vehicle was also there, and they drove me to the hospital. And my mom stayed behind with the kids. And I remember being in the emergency vehicle and thinking, what do I do? Like, what do I do? Who do I call? Who do I call? Because it's, 8 a.m. my time, but all my friends are California. So it's 6 a.m. their time. So I'm like, I can't call any of them. And what are they going to do? But one of my very best friends is an ER doctor. So I was like, what do I do? And I remembered, and this was another blessing for me, one of our great friends and family friends, her parents were best friends with Hunter's parents. She was in town because her daughter goes to UT. Her mom was also in town. So I called her and I said, Hunter's going to the emergency room. I don't really know what happened. He wasn't breathing, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, I'll be right there. So Hunter's best friends, his parents' best friends, were at the hospital. And this girl, Kathy, she was there. So she showed up with a notebook and a pen, and she just started taking notes. And I'm sitting in a room, and the doctor, I did call my friend, my ER doctor friend, and she was on the phone when the doctor came in to talk to me about what's going on. It's all doctor speak, and you don't really understand what he's saying. And so I've got my friend Angelique on the phone, and she's listening, and my friend Kathy is taking notes. And the doctor leaves the room, and I get back on the phone with my friend, and I walk outside, and I go, I don't know what he's saying. Like, what is he saying? And she kind of ran through it, and I go, just tell me what the bottom line is. Is he going to live? And she said, as a doctor, I will tell you he's not leaving the hospital. As your friend, I say, you never know what's going to happen, and you don't give up. And so I was like, okay. So that was on a Sunday. So I already had it in my mind that he might not make it. The family friend, Kathy, she called Hunter's parents and told them they were living in New Mexico And she called them and told them they couldn't get a flight out, so they started to drive, which is like 12 hours.
Yeah.
Little interesting fact, that morning, Hunter's mom woke up and she had this weird desire to make beignets. That was Hunter's favorite thing, was beignets. And she had this weird feeling to make beignets. So she had just finished making beignets when they got the phone call and they left. And I don't remember where Hunter's brother was. I think he was in LA and he's flying in. Hunter had a very core group of friends since high school and middle school, and he grew up in College Station. So there was this small band of brothers who drove in that day and stayed with me in the hospital the whole week. So
He was in the hospital for a week.
So what happened was, yes, he went into the hospital on the 1st. He died on the 5th. And what happened was when he got to the hospital, his brain was swelling. What I found out later was something had to happen earlier in the night. Like, it wasn't like he was dead when I came down. Obviously, he made this noise, which in my mind, I'm like, I got to be with him and comforting him when he was leaving, you know? But his brain had been damaged somehow during the night, didn't get enough oxygen. So it was already swelling. So what they do is they take your body down to like a hypothermia type stage. Is that what they did with Oliver?
Yes. He was already in a coma, but came out for maybe a split second. But
Yes.
they do that to save the brain for sure.
Exactly. So they do that because they hope that they can stop the brain damage and then save the brain. On Sunday, they're trying to get him stable. He went into cardiac. He went into cardiac arrest on Sunday again in the hospital. Now, none of this is really registering with me. Like, he's literally died 3 times now, and they brought him back, right? But that's not registering with me.
During any of this time, has he been able to speak at all?
No,
Or was he unconscious, or they had him unconscious?
No, he was unconscious. He was unconscious when I saw him at 7 a.m. He never regained consciousness.
Okay.
So similar to Oliver.
It's hard.
So they decided we're gonna do this thing where we cool him down and hopefully it keeps the brain from swelling, and then it'll take 24 hours to warm him back up, and then we'll do a scan and see where we are. Okay. So I go home on Sunday night because I the kids have just started school and stuff, and I didn't want to not be there. So I go home and I just said, Dad's in the hospital. And little kids, I mean, they're just thinking he's sitting up in a hospital bed and talking. Like they don't know what it means,
They
right?
didn't ask why. I mean,
No, they heard a little bit of us that morning, but I have never talked to them about what they actually thought was going on. I know that they heard us counting, and one kid tried to come downstairs, and I said, get back upstairs. But I think once he was in the hospital, they thought, oh, he's going to be fine. That's what a hospital does, right?
They got him in and they're going to fix him.
So I go home. They're like, where's Dad? They think he's just going to come. And I go, Dad is in the hospital. I remember they were out on the trampoline. So I had to walk out to the trampoline, and they're having fun. The boys are out there. I don't remember where Sydney was. And I said, Dad's still in the hospital. And my youngest said, but he's going to be okay, right? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. They're doing the best they can, but I don't really know. And I turned and I started walking back, and I looked back at them, and they were jumping again and laughing. And I was like, isn't that a gift? They live in the moment to moment. So they heard that and they processed a little, and then they go back to laughing and having fun. And I was so glad because I didn't want them to be sad. I mean, but they're going to be sad. So the next morning I go back to the hospital, and they're starting to warm him back up, I guess. It's a little fuzzy here. But by this point, Hunter's parents are there. His brother is there. He's got his longtime friend group that is there. My youngest sister, who didn't live in town, she's there. So everybody that loves him and can get there is there. My California people, I was texting with them, and we went to a Catholic school, and they just started prayer vigils. And like, it was really touching to see how this big community of this school came together for us, and they were holding, space for us. And then my little core village in California were together the whole week at one of their houses and with me, but just through text. And people were like, "Can we come? Can we come?" And I told everybody, "Don't come." Like, I couldn't deal with anything else, right? I was just like, "Don't come." And I don't want to talk to anybody. And I remember being on Facebook trying to figure out how to shut down comments. Like, I didn't want anybody to say anything about anything until I knew what was really going on. So they're starting to warm him up, and there are people in the room, and he's squeezing people's hands. Like, my sister was like, "Squeeze my hand," and he would squeeze her hand. And so you're thinking, oh my gosh, maybe this is going to be okay. And it wasn't random. It was like, "Squeeze my hand." Or somebody was telling a joke and he squeezed the hand at the funny part, or whatever. Like, everybody felt like he was actually coming back.
Were his eyes at all moving underneath when they're closed?
Well,
Because that
I
can
didn't
happen
look at
too.
that.
Their eyebrows sometimes move. The eyes are like,
yeah,
back
his
and forth.
eyes were closed. I just remember that the squeezing of the hands gave us all hope. And I remember Hunter's parents saying something like, "Well, this is going to be a lesson for him. Finally, he's going to take care of himself." So I go home Monday night, and one of the things that I made sure was he was never alone in the room. I'll take a night, you guys take a night, but I never want him to be by himself. But I also wanted to go home and have dinner with the kids, and I wanted to put them to bed. I wanted to have some normalcy. So on Monday night, I go back to the kids and I'm like, I think it's okay. Like, I told them, I think it's okay. Daddy's squeezing hands. But again, they didn't know that he had been in a coma or anything. They didn't know much. But I was like, I feel really good, about it. The doctors are working hard. Daddy's working hard. And I feel really good. And the next day I was driving to the hospital and I'm talking to one of the partners that he was very close with on the drive into the hospital. And I'm like, I feel really good about it. He was squeezing hands, and I don't know how long it's going to take or what he's going to be like, but I think I feel really good. And then I go in to the hospital and we're standing around his bed, and a doctor comes in and says, "We're going to go check for," they went and did a scan or something. I don't know what kind, but to check for brain activity. They bring him back up, and a doctor just comes in, and Hunter's parents still are so angry about this. I guess the doctor was just very matter of fact. Like, there's no brain activity. He's brain dead. He's not coming out of this or something. I don't really remember that part.
So how does a brain dead person like squeeze the hands and
once he was
command?
fully right. So that was in the beginning, I think, and I never really asked anybody about this, but in my own head, what I think is that when the brain was frozen, the damage wasn't as profound or something. I don't really know. Or maybe he didn't squeeze hands the way that people thought, or maybe, and I got mad because it became like a party trick. Like, everyone was coming in trying to get him to squeeze their hands. And I was like, enough, he's not doing tricks. And then I never asked him to squeeze my hand. And I regret that now, because I was like, why didn't he squeeze my hand? So I don't really know exactly what the deal was. In my mind, I'm like, his brain was on the way to dying, but there was still some of it enough left to give a little bit of response to people. I don't really know. I look at it as a blessing, because for me, it was comforting to know he knew we were there. And I already felt that. I feel like even if he wasn't in his body, his soul was hanging around and he knew we were there. But to have him squeezing just comforted people,
Yeah.
But it also threw me for a loop, because I thought he was going to go home. And then you find out he's brain dead.
And his parents.
Well, what are the kids asking? I mean,
Okay,
he's been in the hospital now.
Okay, good question. So when I went home on Sunday night, I asked the kids, do you want to come up and see him? And they all said no. And I said, that's totally fine. That is completely your call. And your dad, you don't need to come up. Your dad knows you love him and you don't need to come up. But I said, but if things take a turn, I'll let you know, or something like that. So on Tuesday, when I go back up and I know he's brain dead, the first thing, like, I guess what happened was the doctor says he's brain dead. And then I say, he's a donor. He's an organ donor. So what do we do next? So that prolonged his life, because when you're brain dead, he's on a ventilator. He's not going to be able to keep himself alive. So because he was a donor, they're going to keep him alive until they find people that need his organs. So I'm like, he's a donor. What happens next? And I just kind of went into, I didn't even really register. I just went into, okay, well, he's a donor. So now what do we do? Let's get that going. I was just on like task mode or whatever.
Isn't it interesting when you watch TV shows? The woman always just kind of goes back to the bedroom and just takes a nap.
Right.
And everybody handles it.
Yeah.
And all of us, I think, were get it done types.
Yeah. There were things, I will say this. I remember sitting on the floor in the hallway of the hospital because I was giving people time with Hunter. Because once we knew he wasn't going to make it, I was like, who wants to spend time with him? Everybody can have their moment with him. I'm sitting on the floor in the hospital and I look up and I see two of our good friends from California walking down the hall. I told everybody not to come. They didn't listen to me. They just got on a plane and they were there.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling so grateful for somebody from California, because all the people that were there, they had not been living our lives for the last 15 years together. His parents would see us, but nobody knew our normal life. And so now there were some people in the room that had been with us every day, all the time, going out together, making meals together. And I didn't know that it would, but it brought me so much comfort to have them. And when the organ donor thing started, so the organ donor people come and you have to say what you're willing to donate and like what you're willing to do. And I was like, I cannot deal with all of this. I can't process this. I just want to sit with Hunter. And so
out of the room. And
so my friends, Sharon and Ken from California, they handled all of that. And the only thing that I said, they had to come to me one time because I guess if you're going to donate your tissue or something, they were going to have to take him someplace else. And I was like, he's not fucking leaving. So you can take whatever you need from him as long as he stays here with me. And so that was Tuesday. Hunter's brother and I had to go pick up all the kids from school and tell them that he wasn't going to make it. And I just remember being in the car. Heath was driving, Hunter's brother was driving. And I was texting with my little California village and saying, this is the hardest thing that I'm ever going to have to do because I'm about to change their entire life with what I'm about to do, what I'm about to tell them. And it has to be done, obviously. But it was like this moment, and it reminded me, because Hunter was very into like quantum physics and stuff, and I was always like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
understand. Yeah. He was always like, let me tell you about the double slit theory. And I was like, I don't care. But one of the conversations that we had recently was about, if you don't know it's happening, then it's not really happening. I can't really remember what it was, but it was like this whole thing of like, It doesn't really happen until you know it's happened. And I remember thinking in my head, and I was kind of talking to Hunter about it, I was like, oh, now I get it, because it hasn't happened for them until I tell them that it's happened. And we picked up the boys from school, and then we went and picked up Sydney, and we're driving back to the hospital, and one of the kids says, where are we going? And I said, we're going to go see your dad. And I met Sydney's eyes in the rearview mirror, because she remembered that I said, if things take a turn, I'll let you know. And I could just see right then she knew.
She's the oldest.
Yeah,
so
she's the oldest.
She knew what was going on.
So she knew. And there was a big discussion in the hospital about how I was going to do it. Do I tell them somewhere else and then give them the opportunity? Do I take them into the room with Hunter and then tell them? And I decided that I was going to tell them in the room with Hunter because for whatever reason, right or wrong, I didn't want them to lose the opportunity to say goodbye to him. But at the same time, they have to see him. And he looked great, by the way. I mean, because he's got all this oxygen flowing through him. So his skin looked great. His hair looked amazing. Everybody kept touching it. Except for, he had a lot of
Tubes.
Tubes. Thank you. The decision I made was I'll tell them in the room. And so we go in. Everyone else was in the chapel. And Heath and I went in with the 3 kids. And Hunter's laying there. And I just said, I don't really remember what I said, but it was just like, your dad's not going to make it. And I just wanted you to be here, to see him or say something if you wanted to, but you don't have to stay. And it's totally your call. My daughter hugged Heath, and I think maybe Hunter's mom was in there too, because I remember there was an adult for each kid to hug. And so we hugged on them, and then my oldest and my youngest made the choice to leave. But my middle child chose to stay. And we all left the room, and I could hear his little voice talking to Hunter and just saying, I'm going to keep playing soccer because they had that in common. And I'm going to do good in school, and you're going to be proud of me. And it was just so sweet. And I was grateful that he had that chance because your children didn't have the chance. Not that, and still to this day, I'm not sure if I fucked them up by having them do that or not. But in the moment, I felt like it was the best choice. So he had that moment, and then he left, and I went home with the kids for a little bit, and I just said, if you want to come back up at any time, you can, but I don't have much time left with your dad, so I'm going to be up here, and I love you, and I'll come home for dinner or whatever, but I'm going to be spending the night with your dad. And the nurses asked me if I wanted to lay down with him, which was very odd. And I was like, in my head, I was kind of processing it. No, I don't want to lay down with him because it's weird and all these tubes and everything. But then on the other side, yeah, I do want to lay down with him because I've been laying down with him since I was 19 and I don't have much time left. So of course I'm going to lay down with him. And I remember laying there and thinking, this is really fucking uncomfortable. I don't like laying here, but I was trying to be in the moment and get the last moments in with him. And Lacey, I don't know if you felt that because it's going to be over soon and you're not going to have his hand to hold or, his hair to touch or, I'd always put my nose right in the crook of his neck. And I wanted to do that. So, but it was awkward. And it was uncomfortable. And there are nurses in and out. And you're just like, this is not
It's so
the
weird.
moment that I would have wanted to have. But it was all I had. So I took it. And then the next day, they'd found some donors. He was going to give his kidneys and his liver, which we were like, his liver? We were shocked.
Not after Beer Fest.
I know. But his liver was donated, his kidneys, his eyes. And so the way that it works is once they find the donors, it's got to happen pretty fast. And you're not allowed to be in the room because they have to take all of the life support, take him off life support. Then he dies. Then they run in and grab all the stuff. They can't take it out before he's legally dead, which makes sense, right? Then it's just organ harvesting or something.
Did Oliver donate or?
You can't do that with group A strep, toxic shock.
Yeah, because some of his organs were damaged.
But they all completely shut down.
Yeah.
So, he was an organ donor, but no,
They
all
couldn't
of it
use
was
anything. So we knew Thursday morning, that's it. Which by this point I'd been in the hospital since Sunday, and there's a part of you that's like, I just want this to be over. I just want this to be done. I can't live in this any longer. Another great friend of mine came into town with her daughter, who was very close to my daughter. So she's there with me right before Hunter was going to go down and be pulled off life support. So she's standing outside and the curtain's like halfway pulled. And I'm standing up at Hunter's face and I'm just like saying goodbye. And it's very emotional. And I'm crying and I'm telling him how much I love him and how we're going to be okay and all of the things. And I look up and there is my friend, Melissa. She's just staring like she's watching a Lifetime movie. And we catch eyes and she's like, we have laughed about it forever since then because it was like this moment. She couldn't look away, and yet she knew she needed to look away. So that happens. They take him downstairs. You could make the choice to stand outside of like the operating room, but you're not in there with him. And I was like, I don't want to stand outside. I don't need to be there. His soul is with me. That's just the body. So I'm not going to go down there. And it really bothered my mom. She was like, who's with him? And I was like, he's with us. We don't need to be with him. He's with us. We just sat in a waiting room and then we were told that he died. And I just remember walking out and just being like, I'm so relieved that it's over. And what I didn't know was that day that Hunter was dying and he was giving his organs, the school in California my friends had set up a prayer service. The entire church was filled with people and they're all praying for us. And it was at the exact time that Hunter was dying. And nobody knew that. So it's like, I imagine my mom was so worried about Hunter being by himself. And all I could think was he had so many people, like in that moment, he was not alone. He was being lifted up and my family was being lifted up. And it was like the worst possible moment in my life. And yet the most amazing, beautiful moment in my life, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because the amount of love and support on a whole nother level, not even earthly, I didn't feel like. And then the amount of love and support that you feel in the weeks after, how people show up in ways that you never even imagined. So even though it was the worst possible day, when I think about it, I'm just overcome with like gratitude for being the recipient of all this love and care and support. So, yeah. So then we went home and everybody got wasted.
Amen.
We got really drunk.
Sure. The sense of like, just, you had to just be completely exhausted and just kind of a sense of relief.
Yeah, it's almost, and I don't know if you guys got to this point, but it's like I had no more feeling left. Like I had cried, I had worried, I had loved, and it was just like now I was just exhausted and almost delirious. Yeah. I was delirious.
Yeah.
So, but we did we went home and raised a glass and multiple glasses with all the people that were still in town, and he was cremated, which is a whole nother thing, a weird mental thing. When I look back on that week, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm not even sharing, but I look back at it and I see my strength. There was a lot of humor, dark humor. I see the support and the love and the community that I have and the friends that we made and the family that I have, my own family and Hunter's family. We just all experienced this horrible, amazing week together. Yeah, I was glad when I just walked out of there and I was like, I'm never fucking coming back here again.
Isn't it interesting? I've had someone asked me to come to Seton to see them. They were in the hospital, see a friend. I couldn't do it. Yeah. I couldn't go in there. I thought, why am I not put my big girl panties on and go in the hospital? But there was a visceral feeling that I thought I'm going to be panicked. But
yeah, it's painful. It's horrific.
You were probably the most positive about it because I remember being like, who's this Whitney girl?
You're like, I don't know if I can be friends with her. Oh, I went over the top. Okay, let's be honest.
Because it was early on.
Yes.
And you were so, like, we met at Jeffrey's.
How long was that Jeffrey's happy hour?
4 months.
4 months.
So I remember us talking about it. I was like, who is this girl that can be so wow? Because I was pissed off. Yeah. I mean, for the longest, I did not have any of those grateful moments. I wish I could have, but I didn't.
There was a lot of stress in my life and things that I had no control over. So I had already kind of been diving into like, why is all this shit happening? And what is this? Why is this happening? And so I was already on this weird path of like, there are lessons to be learned in every experience. And you can look at the light in it or you can dive into the dark in it. So I remember having a moment in the hospital where I was like, what am I going to do? Which path am I going to take? And I went down the grateful path. But then I went off the rails. I went home. I bought a ton of books about the soul. I was trying to reach out to mediums, like, can I talk to you tomorrow? So that was my coping mechanism, which wasn't completely healthy because I wasn't willing to sit in the sad part. And I was trying to lift everybody else up.
I had never met anybody for a drink or dinner or anything for a very, very long time because I just couldn't be around people.
Right.
It was I had to be around people.
And it's funny how we all
would show up. Everyone would show up at my door, but I needed to be around people. I didn't want to be alone.
This is the weird part. People were reaching out to me. All my California people were reaching out, wanting to talk. I didn't answer any phone calls. I didn't text a lot of people back. And then I didn't have a friend group here in Austin. I just had my family. My mom was close to Hunter, and so we were kind of grieving together. I didn't want to talk to anybody except for like you guys, because that's why I reached out to Holly as fast as I could as soon as I found out about her, because I was just trying to find ways to be around people that I didn't have to explain anything to.
Right.
I feel like I was at my healthiest that first year because I was very connected to God and a higher, like a bigger picture and all this stuff.
I don't think any of us were handling it quite like that.
I was jealous that you did have such a positive spin because I think I was still questioning, why. I never really got deep into why did this happen to me. It was more, why did this happen to my kids? Mm-hmm. And why did Frank have to miss out?
That was exactly
why did he have to miss out on all of this, watching the kids grow up and all the things that he loved? And I was upset. I'm still upset about that. And you seemed in that moment like you'd already made peace with it, which I thought was incredible. Did they ever explain to you what the sound was?
No, they always try to say it was a death rattle or something. It was not, you guys. I honestly feel like that was the gift of, hey, I'm leaving. You need to be down here. Because if he had not made that noise, he would be dead. He would have died on the couch. The kids and I would wake up and go downstairs to a cold body on a couch. So because of that noise, he stayed alive several more days. His family got to come and say goodbye. He was an organ donor and saved multiple lives.
I mean, the opportunity to say, I don't know how Holly feels, but the opportunity to say goodbye like that and have time. And I know it was awful.
No, but it is a gift. And that's something I recognize.
I mean, I literally never laid eyes on Frank again. I mean, I never got to say goodbye. I never got to hold his hand.
Everybody's story is different. And honestly, I feel bad sometimes sharing all of the gifts that I feel like I was given, because I'm sure there are people that are like, well, I didn't get any gifts.
No, you shouldn't feel that way.
But 2 weeks before he died, we had family pictures taken. We never had photos taken.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we went to the beach the summer before, and my sister was like, oh, we're all going to do photos on the beach. And I was like, I'm not putting my white dress on and doing photos on the beach. I'm like,
oh, is that it?
Yeah, that's great.
That was our last family photo on the beach in the white dress.
Yeah. The beer festival was a gift. The pictures were a gift. I had a dream that he died 2 weeks before. And so we had a whole conversation. I got to say a bunch of things to him while he was still fully present. We're going to wrap it up. But I
Not the club you want to sign up for.
No, it's not. But we're all doing it with grace and badassery. And we just want other people to know that they can do that too, if they feel like it. If you want to hide under your bed, you can do that too. Grief it's messy.
And we're no maids.
Boom.